One of the hardest things about navigating the Western medical system is that clinicians are not given enough time to adequately hear the stories of their patients. What happens is people walk away from the physician's office or from the pharmacy encounter or even a visit with a nurse feeling like they haven't been heard. And when you feel unheard, it can lead to a dismissal of real life symptoms that fit together in some odd, rare, unseen pattern. Today, I interview Dr. Seema Kanwal. She is a naturopathic physician who specializes in rare diseases and nutrition. I thought it was very important to have someone on who could talk about rare genetic diseases because oftentimes these patients get pushed to the side and swept under the rug and are given a seeming hamster wheel of different treatments that never truly get at the root cause of what is going on, and no one addresses what could be a simple fix if only you're looking in the right place. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show, a podcast for people who deserve to be healthy, with honest, open, and enlightening conversations with doctors, thought leaders, creatives, and spiritual gurus. You'll walk away with simple and tangible tips and tricks that allow you to live your healthiest life so you can pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Dr. Seema Kanwal is a practicing naturopathic physician in Vancouver, Canada. She has extensive experience and is passionate about working with people who have rare genetic disorders and may suffer from stress-related conditions due to their disorder. This can lead to mental health issues, insomnia, as well as low energy. She helps to guide people with rare diseases to mental wellness, vibrant energy and vitality, and helps them achieve an overall higher standard of life. Oftentimes, they don't even know it was possible to feel this good with their condition. We start our conversation focusing in on a gene called Apo E. The Apo E gene is the instructions for making a protein called apolipoprotein E. This protein combines with fat in the body to form molecules called lipoproteins. And lipoproteins are responsible for packaging cholesterol and fats and moving them throughout the body. Apo E impacts more people than you might think. There are at least 3 different versions of the Apo E gene, which we talk about with Dr. Kanwal. And many people who have high cholesterol may actually have the Apo E genetic polymorphism that leads them to have high levels of bad cholesterol and therefore metabolic and cardiovascular diseases, even without knowing that their genes are the source of the problem. We dive deeper into even more rare disorders, but for now, let's get to my interview with Dr. Kanwal. Dr. Seema Kanwal, welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Thank you so much, Lindsay, for having me today. This is super exciting to join you today.
I am so excited to talk to you because you work with patients who have rare genetic diseases that may go underdiagnosed, they may go swept under the rug, and that can lead to stress, which often leads to mental health disorders, which leads to growing insomnia, which leads to the root causes of why people don't feel good just left out there in the open. Nobody is taking ownership of it. So even though you work in rare genetic diseases, we all have a ton of genetics within us, and every single one of us have different genes. Some of those genes would be considered normal. Some of them would be considered mutations, and some of those mutations could make you super. They could make your metabolism run really fast, or it could make this one enzyme run really fast, or it could make things not function the way that they are supposed to. Get us started today and just help us understand this whole broad spectrum of genetic conditions, from the very, very common genetic mutations that you may have a normal walkie-talkie life and never know that you have it, to the much more rare genetic conditions that have a significant impact on a small number of people's lives.
It's a great place to start. I mean, when we look at different types of genetic mutations, the most common thing we've often heard about is, oh, you probably have an MTHFR gene mutation. So sure, your methylation is not working, therefore you have to take a certain type of B vitamin. This goes way beyond that. We always, as a naturopathic physician, what I always look at is what is the person's environment as well. With our genes, as I'm sure everybody here knows, is that they'll either turn on or turn off. They'll either protect us or they can harm us. But when we go further down the road, and if we're actually missing a particular enzyme, like I see in my rare disease population that I work with, the times of misdiagnosis that has been occurring year after year after year is exactly what you said. The stress, people think, oh my God, it's in my head. Or the doctors say, it's just what's going on for you right now. It's nothing real. So we're often just led to believe that what I'm feeling is in my head, and it's not an actual diagnosis, sadly. People have chronic pain, or there's hearing loss or ringing in the ears. So many things that are so common, not normal. I always say that. What is it that's okay and what's not okay? One of the things that I've now looked at in the last 10, 12 years is something called the ApoE gene. We all have ApoE gene. One comes from mom, one comes from dad. So it's always two that we get. Now, depending on what gene you are a carrier of, which sequence you have, will determine how well does your body do with carbohydrates? How well does your body do with fats? How well does your body do with just normal cholesterol? Alcohol is a huge one. We look at our pandemic. What has happened? Our sales up here in Canada for alcohol has gone up by 92%. Soda pop was actually out in the grocery store. That has risen by 58%. So the question then for me is always, okay, based on your genetics, are your body somebody that can actually handle alcohol? Is your body something that maybe needs to veer away from that? Try telling somebody though, try not to drink Monday to Friday. They're going to look at me like I have two heads. That's just the way it's been these days. So let me just explain really quick what the ApoE gene. So 3 is the most common. It's, about 65% of the population is considered the neutral gene. Now, ApoE 2 and 4 are considered the alternative expression. So we've all, maybe in our families, we've had somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia. The carrier for that Alzheimer gene is actually the 4-4 genotype. But that means that 90% chance you will have of developing the chronic illness unless you have a gene supportive environment. So what that means is that you may be a 4-4 carrier. Does that mean now that's it? You're going to be having now Alzheimer's? There's no chance for you? Of course not. To me, then I look at what is the environment. Let's look at the epigenetics. We want to bathe our cells in a vat of nutrition, not bathe ourselves in a little bit of a muddy water, let's say, to speak. But if we are able to support our body based on what our genes are, why would they turn on for us then? Every baby born in North America here is checked for something called PKU, phenylketonuria. As long as we follow a low phenylalanine diet for that baby, they will never develop mental retardation. So it's very simple. If we follow our own genetics and eat for our body, there's no reason why it would harm us or go against us. And it's never too late to start.
Okay, so there's so much there. One of the things you said, I bet everybody knows that your genes turn on and your genes turn off. Now, we hear a whole lot about biohacking and how to hack your genetics and all this other stuff. So, you mentioned a gene supportive environment. And so, if I know I have this Apo E 44 type genotype, what we're saying is we want to prevent the expression of the phenotype, the expression of those clinical symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, which is what can happen to people with this genotype. Talk to us about some of the behaviors that we have that are gene supportive and other ones that can be gene disruptive.
One of the biggest things that you said at the beginning of our conversation, Lindsay, was stress. Stress is probably the number one thing that will determine whether a gene will turn on or off. And I'm not just talking about pandemic stress. I'm talking about, stress as a general whole. If you're somebody who's a single parent, that's a different stress altogether. If you're somebody who has, you're in a relationship that is maybe not so supportive, that's a different type of stress. So when it comes to gene supportive environments, I don't look at just what is a person putting in their mouth. I look at what is your home? What type of toxins are you actually, being exposed to on a regular basis? What is your commute like? If you're someone who in the pandemic, like I've seen a lot of different patients this past year, is they're literally stuck at home is what I've been told. Like they cannot get out. And for them now, work never turns off. Now, on because it's in their living room or at their bedroom, here, and I live in beautiful Vancouver, BC, and it's not the cheapest place to live. So if we live in a 2-bedroom place and we have a kid, let's say at home with us in that tiny space, where's that person going to go? It's very difficult right now. But even outside of that, what are some of the other things? Do we have an elderly parent? Do we have, family members, somewhere else that maybe we're not able to visit? All these things we don't even realize, especially as women and men handle stress very differently. For men, often they'll keep it inside, and one day we have a heart attack. Is that an accident? I don't know. For women, it's completely different. They will have menopausal symptoms. We have, now we talk about hot flashes, we talk about sweats for women, and all of a sudden, postmenopausal, oh, that's normal, you have to deal with it. Is it? My grandmother went through menopause with 0 symptoms. So what I remember when I was younger and I asked her about this and like, did you go through menopause? She's like, yeah, of course I did. One day my period stopped and that was it. And I said, well, what about all these other symptoms that I so hear about all the time? She's like, what are you talking about? I was a cuckoo person. So all these things. So if we haven't dealt with our stresses earlier on in our life, our 20s or 30s, by the time women approach 40s and 50s, these are what I consider chronic catch up. Our body will then tell us, you now have to deal with it. Because then, I'm sure you've seen this as well, our body will sometimes just slowly whisper at us. And listen to the whispers. What happens then? It starts to nag us a bit more. It'll start to scream. And eventually we still don't listen. It'll start to yell at us. And once the yelling begins, then try turning that off. That's hard. It's very hard.